So we're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, verses 35 to 39 to 41, whether it's perfect. So first of all, as is the tradition here at Kalakantha, we'll read a little bit about this pastime of Srila Prabhupada. So it says here, one morning, the couple attended a lecture. A woman carrying a child and a man wearing a backpack. During the question and answer period, the man asked, "What about my mind?" Swamiji gave him philosophical replies. But the man kept repeating, "What about my mind? What about my mind?" With a pleading, compassionate look, Swamiji said, "I have no other medicine. Please chant this Hare Krishna. I have no other explanation. I have no other answer." But the man kept talking about his mind. Finally, one of the women devotees interrupted and said, "Just do what he says. Just try it." And Swamiji picked up his cartels and began kirtan. One evening, a boy burst into the lecture, exclaiming that the riot was gathering at High Street. The Swami should come immediately, address the crowd, and calm everyone down. Mukunda explained that wasn't necessarily for Swamiji to go. Others could help. The boy just stared at Swamiji as if giving an ultimatum. Unless Swamiji comes immediately, there will be a riot, and Swamiji will be to blame. Swamiji spoke as if preparing to do what the boy wanted. "Yes, I'm prepared." But nobody went, and there was no riot. Okay, so Prabhupada, so it's entitled the Hamsa Guya Prayers. And there's a big line of verses, so I'll read them and then we'll repeat. Is that on 41 there?
This is 35 minutes.
Yes, but there's no purpose, so I'll just read it.
Yeah, sure.
Shishukha Vacha Iti Sutta Samtuvataha Satasmi Agamajni Pradura Shikurush Shrestha Bhagavan Bhaktavatsalah Kritapada Saparnanse Ambasta Mahapurusha Chakra Sankashi Chavnishu Pasha Kadhavara Hitavasaya Nashama Shama Vandhanekshanaha Vannahala Nivitango Ashat Kivasa Kaustubaha Mahakirita Katakaha Srihamakara Kundalaha Kanchi Anguliya Valaya Purankada Bhusitaha Tailokya Mohanam Rupam Vibra Tribhuvaneshwaraha Ritunarada Nandanyari Pashadai Surai Yuttapai Visturuya Manurmugaya Bhi Sita Gandharva Charanai. So the translation of this goes like this. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who is extremely affectionate to his devotees, was very pleased by the prayers offered by Daksha. Thus, he appeared at the holy place known as Agamashama, O Maharaj Parikshit, best of the Guru dynasty. The Lord's lotus feet rested on the shoulders of his carrier Garuda, and he appeared with 8 long, mighty, very beautiful arms. In his hands he held a disc, conch shell, sword, shield, arrow, bow, rope, and plow. In each hand a different weapon, all brilliantly shining. His garment were yellow and his bodily hue deep bluish. His eyes and face was very cheerful, and from his neck and his feet hung a long garland of flowers. His chest was decorated with the Kaustuba jewel and the mark of Shivatsa. On his head was a gorgeous round helmet, and his ears were decorated with earrings resembling sharks. All these ornaments were uncommonly beautiful. The Lord wore a golden belt on his waist, bracelets on his arms, rings in his fingers, and ankle bells on his feet. Thus decorated by various ornaments, Lord Hari, who is attractive to all the living entities of the three worlds, is known as Purushottam, the best personality. He was accompanied by great devotees like Narada, Nanda, and all the principal demigods, led by the heavenly king Indra and the residents of various upper planetary systems, such as Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, and Charanaloka, situated on both sides of the Lord and behind him as well. These devotees offer him prayers continuously. So, verse number 40. Rupam Tanmaha Ascharyam Vichakshaya Gatha Sadhasaha Nanama Dandavadbhuho Praharistatma Prajapati. Seeing that wonderful and effulgent form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prajapati Daksha was first somewhat afraid, but then he was very pleased to see the Lord. And he fell to the ground like a stick, Dandavat, to offer his respect to the Lord. Now finally, verse 41, where we can do it together. Na kincha no dirai, na kincha no diraitum,
Na kincha no diraitum,
ashakt trivaya muda,
ashakti vayamuda,
apurita manodvari,
purita manodvare,
hridai diva nija nirjarai,
vignaniva nijare,
kincha no diraitum,
na kincha no diraitum,
ashakt trivaya muda,
ashakti vayamuda,
apurita manodvarai,
apurita manodvare,
vidaniya diva nirjarai.
vignaniva nijare.
Sanskrit's not my strong part. Would the devotees like to try?
Na kinchano dirahitum, na kinchano dirahitum, ashakta yayamda, asakati yayamda, purita manodvari, purita manodvari, vidya nirjarai, vidya nirjarai. Na kinchano dirahitam, na kinchano dirahitam, asakati vrayamuda, asakati vrayamuda, apurita manodvare, apurita manodvare, vidya nijare,
Na kinchano dirahitum,
na kinchano dirahitam,
ashakati prayamuda,
asakati vrayamuda,
apurita manodvare,
apurita manodvare,
vidya nijare.
It says here, na, not,
no,
kinchana, anything.
anything.
Udirayitum,
Udirayitum,
to speak.
speak,
Ashakt,
ashakti,
he was able.
he was able.
Tivraya,
Tivraya,
by very great.
Ayurveda,
Buddha,
Buddha,
happiness.
Happiness,
Apurita,
Apurita,
filled.
Filled,
Mana, Dwarai,
Manadvari,
by the senses.
by the senses,
Hridaya, Ridinya,
Indinya,
the rivers.
the rivers,
Eva,
Eva,
like. Nicharai,
Nijara,
by torrents from the mountain.
silence from the mountain.
So the translation goes like this. As the rivers are filled by water flowing from the mountain, all the Daksha senses were filled with pleasure. Because of his highly elevated happiness, Daksha could not say anything, but simply remain flat on the ground. Shall I repeat that? Beautiful. As the rivers are filled by water,
As the rivers are filled by water,
flowing from the mountain,
flowing from the mountain,
all the Daksha senses
all of the Daksha senses
were filled with pleasure.
were filled with pleasure.
Because of his highly elevated happiness,
Because of his highly elevated happiness,
Daksha could not say anything,
Daksha could not say anything,
but simply remain flat on the ground.
but simply remained flat on the ground.
When one actually realizes or sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is filled with complete happiness. For example, when Dhruva Maharaj saw the Lord in his presence, he said, Swami Kritato Smi Param Na Yachi. My dear Lord, I have nothing to ask from you. Now I'm completely satisfied. Similarly, when Prajapati Daksha saw the Supreme Lord in his presence, he simply fell flat, unable to speak or ask him for anything. So, Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Tirantasya Jnana Chalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jnana Tasmai Shri Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gauravatta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it's a pleasure to be here at Karuna Bhavan. It's always an inspiring experience to see the lordships on the top of the hill and all of you here manifesting the purity and the transcendental vibrations. So congratulations for all your service. I think if you go around many miles, you'll not see another place emanating light like you're doing here. So my humble obeisance to your services. It's a pleasure to be here too, because I see Karuna Bhavan as a project which can show in a very concise way a very sustainable model. I can see Karuna Bhavan thriving with its alternative energies, its biomass production, vegetable garden productions. Now the cows are coming, the hens of dairy coming, and all of that culminating bhakti at the top of the hill. So that's a message that we'll really benefit from. And I'm very inspired by the leadership here, by the devotees. Therefore, the ministry has, in a way, adopted Karuna Bhavan and a few other communities in an effort to make these communities give substantial steps to sustainable. That's called, the initiative is called Sustainable Vaishnava Communities, SVC. It's a program that the ministry is doing. So, here, the Bhagavatam, as usual, is giving us transcendental knowledge, which has the power of transformation. Transformation is the main topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole Srimad Bhagavatam is designed so there's a transformation. And here specifically, this pastime started a lot before, on the fourth canto. And it's such a scripture that you can look at it from different angles, just like you're coming. And you see these beautiful houses and a church. You start to understand how those people were living somewhat in harmony with nature, environment, aesthetically pleasing, very clean. There's flowers in the gardens, and fields behind the houses. There's some kind of still of balance left. But if you then take a flight and you look over, you see the village, there's other villages, and if you go even higher, you see Scotland is situated within the continent, and then you see a bigger picture. So similarly, the Bhagavatam is giving us different perspectives with different themes which are going through, and all of these themes have the ultimate goal of transforming our consciousness. Srimad Bhagavatam is the instrument that was left for us by Sri Krishna in his absence, to illuminate and to give us the transformation of heart which can take us from this material environment to the transcendental, nectarian, ever-blissful environment of Goloka Vrindavan. So by systematically listening to Srimad Bhagavatam, we develop attraction to the Lord, and amazing mystical, magical things that are happening in our life. Arrangements, all of us have witnesses how Krishna has kind of woven like a fabric. And you can see how the events of one leads to another. And after you look back, you're going to see a beautiful painting with all the details of your life being part of that great picture of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Confirmed. So, this specific story starts in the fourth canto. It is very significant pastime because the Prachetas are the parents of Daksha. And Daksha here has done austerities, and now he offered prayers to the Lord. And actually, the prayers satisfied the Lord to a degree that he appeared in person. Daksha already had 2 unsuccessful attempts, and he had to leave his body. So now he's getting another chance because he's a Prajapati. He's a person who's very dear to Krishna. So the first lesson we take is when we make mistakes, the Lord is ready to give you another chance. The more you're willing to transform that into a positive learning, the more opulence He gives you for the transformation process. It's a very important first lesson that Daksha made mistakes, but what's being pointed out here are not his mistakes, but his victory. He pleased the Lord, and the Lord is appearing before him. If we go back to his parents, the Prachetas were actually very special personalities because they were given the task to be a Grihastha. And first he said, we need to think about this. So they meditated for 10,000 years on the matter. There's a 10,000 year deliberation period before they said, yes, let's go into this. Because what is being asked is to generate a person, a son, a progeny, which is able to then again transform the world for the better. Which is able to be that person, should have the ability to become Krishna conscious. So when we ask to be a parent, what's being asked for us is to actually be able to guide that person towards Krishna consciousness. And that's an enormous responsibility. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, if I had the only guarantee that my children were going to be Krishna conscious, I would engage in sexual activities 100 times. He said like that. Because I don't have the guarantee, I refrain. And so he became an Astika Brahmachari with the mission of preaching and expanding the work of his father in India. And he established 64 months. Where Srila Prabhupada took his mission, went abroad, and opened 108 centers. Like the grandson always had a mission to surpass the father and the grandfather. The father in the case, that was his father. So interestingly enough, the Prachetas are meditating for 10,000 years and they please the Lord. Now, do you know what was the specific thing that they did that really pleased the Lord? Who can give a guess? Yes, that was very pleasing for the Lord, but there was something more pleasing than that to the Lord.
Was it the cooperation amongst themselves?
Yes. They could do austerities, but they were cooperating. And this really pleased the Lord. If the devotees are working together to please the Lord is very pleased with that. Because that is the mood of the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, in that picture you see there, all the gopis and Krishna, everybody's cooperating for Krishna to have more pleasure. And Krishna's cooperating so that they have more pleasure. And then they cooperate for Krishna having more pleasure. And then Krishna cooperates, they have more pleasure. So the pleasure is unlimited and ever fresh because everybody's thinking how to please the other person. And that is the secret of the spiritual world, which here gets reflected. Instead of trying to please the other, my dealing is I meet you and I can understand what can I have from you so I'm pleased. And that reverse complicates things very much because with the idea that I center, the whole relational spiritual system breaks down. And that's what we have today, an impersonal society where it's my pleasure first. And then, if I have time, I can go to the Radha. That's what we heard, right? That's what we heard in that house program. The Prabhu was calling everybody and he was saying, okay, I'll check my agenda. If I have time, I'll go to the Radha. So that is because the world is designed in such a way that will be drawn and made hostage of this idea that if I have more pleasure, then I'll be more happy. And actually the opposite. The more you give pleasure, the more you're happy. Have you ever had the experience you go to a place and you donate time, energy, money, and you feel so light, you feel so happy all of a sudden because you did something meaningful for someone else. So when parents are called to be parents, the big meditation is, what do I need to do so the children will be happy and will be prospering? And we do forget that, and I include myself. And then we think it's about us, parents, and we miss the message. And then we have to fix it. But like Daksha is forgiven by the Lord. We pray that our children forgive us. And we then try to make it up, make time for them, make meditation and priority for them. It is said that in America, some time back, maybe this is 8 years back, data, but a regular child would spend 38 minutes with their parents in the week. And they would spend 47 hours on social media, on TV, and movies and stuff like this. Now, why that mentality is arising is because they're thinking, if I provide financially, as a parent, I did my seva, I did my part. And it's so hard today just to provide financially because there is schooling, there is insurance, there is housing, there is mortgage, there is blah, 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 blah. And the whole system is designed so we're more and more entangled. Apparently, it's to make it more easy. Your car has so many buttons that it's supposed to make things easy, right? You press a button, your seat is heated, right? It's so comfortable, right? In the winter. For a Brazilian, that's a really good gadget. Yes, but actually to keep that car together, all the maintenance, all the specialized garages that you have to go to become more complex. And as we complexify life, we have to work more and more and more. Before in the 60s, one parent could work, and that would be enough to maintain the whole family from 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon with the lunchtime at home with the family. That was enough. Today, both work 12 hours, sometimes 13 hours, and it's not enough. Still, you're short. You can make a little research in your congregation, you'll find amazing data. And moving on, as the petrol prices goes to £2 a liter, that's unheard of. Going up, as the retirement age goes from 60 to 65 to 67, maybe it'll be 70. So by the time you need the retirement, you're finished because nobody reaches 70 any longer. So the whole system is designed to push you to get more and more entangled. And therefore, when we parents sometimes think just providing financially is such a victory that maybe I did my duty, but that's not exactly the duty. The duty of the parents is to give quality time for the children at different times of their lives. When I was thinking about this in Brazil, my wife decided to move to India to give a more spiritual education for the children. So I quit all the dreams of career and masters in organic farming and things to go to India and support the family in this endeavor. And I really appreciate that I did that, because we can see today the children at least have that exposure to spiritual life in a very important age, an age when the values have been formed. So we're losing audience. I hope I didn't say anything else. I understand there's so many services to be done. So the Prachetas are really meditating on this. And after they hear about their mission, what they have to do and everything, they emerge from the water. They have seen the Lord and they look at what's happening outside. And when they look outside, they see that the forest has taken over. And they say the forest has grown to a degree that it seems that they're stopping the inhabitants of this planet to go to the heavenly planets. The tree seems to be closing all the spaces. And I brought this verse so we can perhaps today work on this, and next class we can work more on Laksha. And it's verse number 30 on the fourth canto, chapter 30, verse 44. Thereafter, all the Prachetas emerged from the waters of the sea. You have it here? Yes. They then saw all the trees on land had grown very tall, as if to obstruct the path to the heavenly planets. These trees had covered the entire surface of the world. At this time, the Prachetas became very angry. And Prabhupada, he does give a beautiful purport, which I'd like to share with you. It says, King Pratinabhaisat, their father, left his kingdom before his sons arrived, 10,000 years ago. After the execution of penance and austerity, the sons, the Prachetas, were ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come out of the water, go to the kingdom of their father in order to take care of the kingdom. However, when they came out, they saw that everything had been neglected due to the king's absence. They first observed that food grains were not being produced, and there were no agricultural activities. Indeed, the surface of the world was practically covered by very tall trees. It seemed as though the trees were determined to stop people from going to outer space to reach their heavenly kingdoms. The Prachetas became very angry when they saw the surface of the globe covered in water. They desired that the land be cleared for crops. This verse is very significant because here, Prabhupada, and he's going to give more information, he's not subscribing the idea that the forest is a sacred space that cannot be touched. It's a common modern ecological belief. The forest is a sacred space which cannot be managed, cannot be touched. It should be there as something just to be kept as a sacred space, as an altar. But here, The Prachetas are clearly saying there's no grains. So the first indication is there's a symbiosis between grains and forest, which should always be there for humankind to be able to offer that for the maintenance of the universe. Then Prabhupada goes on. It is not a fact, this is a very revolutionary statement. It is not a fact that jungles and trees attract clouds and rain. Prabhupada is saying very boldly, it is not a fact that jungles and trees attract clouds and rain. Because we find rainfall over the sea. So Prabhupada is indicating something higher. What he's indicating is not the trees which attracts the rain, but the trees are part of the rain cycle. And that is being today explored in Brazil with what they call aerial rivers, rivers in the air. Each tree would pump into the air 1,000 liters a day. And that water, which goes into the atmosphere, then is converted into rains. So by evapotranspiration, that's a technical term, all this goes up into the air. But Prabhupada is saying it's not them. Actually, then you further explain, Indra is the one who controls that. The trees are just an instrument to put the water in the atmosphere. Human beings can inhabit any place on the surface of the earth by clearing jungles and converting land for agricultural purposes. Look at that. People can keep cows and all economic problems can be solved and happy. One need only work to produce grains and take care of cows. See, Prabhupada here is immediately connecting grains and cows. These two are, for Prabhupada, is always together. The wood found in the jungles may be used for constructing cottages. In this way, the economic problem of humanity can be solved. At the present moment, there are many vacant lands throughout the world, and if they are properly utilized, there will be no scarcity of food. As far as rain is concerned, it is the performance of yagya that attracts rain. So now here he gives the actual mechanism how rain is produced. There is someone controlling the rains, and that personality is pleased, therefore he gives the rains, according to the yagyas of humanity. I'd like to just elaborate a little bit on this, because this is so important for us. The Prachetas is actually here in this verse postulating the agroforestry, let's say, ethos, which is the cohabitance of man and forest together in a planned way. This is what the Vedas was always defending. There is a level of forest which is never touched, and that forest is kept wild with animals and wild animals. And that forest is maintained by the power of the sages who protect them. Nobody can cross because they live in a certain sphere of the forest. Anybody desiring to go there, they would stop them. But then there's another layer where they do austerities and ashrams, which is managed. And then there's an area which is really managed, is where the villages are. So that's how they would distribute forest management. And here, Prabhupada is saying that we'll look at this in detail in the workshop. It says, jungle can be cleared for converting the land for agricultural purposes. So that's what the native Indians would do in Amazon. In Amazon, the native Indians, they would clear parts of the jungle, and that jungle was so fertile that all the crops would grow. And they would grow it with fruit trees, so that forest would regenerate, and they open a new patch of forest. So they would go around. So today, when you look at the native Brazilian Indian village, there are circular patterns of trees, because it took them like 30, 40 years to come back to the first spot. So then it was fully regenerated. And then, like this, some places they build a black soil as deep as this room. Just the top layer of soil is 2 meters, 2.5 meters deep. just from burning and managing biomass and forests. The strength of that soil became so big. So you see, the Bible is full of information how to do this. How can we live in harmony with nature? Prabhupada then goes on to say, all the wood that you can generate can become your floors, your walls, your roofs. You can actually, there's technology today to do that. And then you can use alternative material like clay and stones. Here, stones is very prominent. So the stone houses with clay insulation, with bale, all this could make very strong houses like we used to do before. And we can live very efficiently and much cheaper than today. This is coming from the Bhagavatam. So the Prachetas, they were thinking how to educate their children. Therefore, economic development had to be present for them to succeed. And if there's no grains, there are no cows being kept, there's no economy. So their impetus is not because they're just angry at the forest from nowhere. They're angry because the human path of prosperity is being interrupted by the uncontrolled growth of the forest. Because the forest has one mission. Every plant on the planet is working towards forest. If you leave it, that bush will become bigger until it's a whole forest, a whole jungle. It's just the nature, how it's designed. So by the symbiosis between man and forest, you can then find all these developments. And when man becomes greedy and just loses his dharma, he does what he does today. He just clears forest indiscriminately, destroying biodiversity, destroying all the animals, all the fertility. And that's Amazon, it's Congo, that's the US. What the US did, what Europe did. All the forests have been eliminated, and now you have secondary forests, human-grown forests, but natural forests have been cut to 4% in Europe and America. While Brazil still has 90-something% of its forest, and it's blamed for being the worst builder. It's doing bad work now, but it still has a big deal of forest. So just to end, I wanted to point this today, and today I wanted to focus on the economic base on the ecology, and that's what we'll discuss on Wednesday and Thursday. And the next Bhagavatam class, I'd like to bring how this education was the top priority, and for what purpose. So I'll end here, so we have a little minutes for questions on this first part. Yes, sure.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a question regarding clearing jungles and converting the land for agricultural purposes and regenerative agriculture. Because aren't the jungles, if they're left alone, a regenerative type of growth, and then if you clear them, you're not interfering with that, and then just put like less variety of crossing species. So perhaps I just want to understand enough about the regenerative method, and maybe that's another lecture on its own, of course.
That's what we do talk on tourism in more detail. But I can just, as a principle, tell you that if you leave the forest on its own, it will work for the maximum benefit of biomass and diversity in life, but not necessarily things which will be completely useful for the humankind. It will be like a full resource in balance, but not necessarily the fruits you need, the grains you need, the milk you need. So by that symbiosis with Dharma, then you get a balance. You get a balance. You see, if you just leave the whole place here and let it overgrow, become a jungle, it's very hard to use the space. I can already see some paths, so much growth that you can't even cross it. And then the next point is it blocks your way and stuff. So the management is very important. And to do it in a dharmic way, that's what to generate abundance. Because you have ingredients to make yagyas, and yagyas make rain, and then rain makes grains. and then grains can be offerings to the Lord. So that cycle of sacrifice is the deeper ecological link with the ecology movement doesn't know yet. And we need to tell them that. We need to communicate that. That's why the Dharma we have, the understanding of Dharma can be so beneficial for the ecologists. It can solve their issues because they can fully understand the balance between management and letting nature be itself in some spaces, but not all the spaces. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the point you made about Dharma and Shastra, because if you just do that thing to nature to its own devices, then you'll come to the point where our houses will all understanding because streams up the foundations, you'll be running, rats will be running around, etc. So if you just leave nature to itself, then there's no place for humans. And it seems like the Shastra and allows us our space to live as well. It seems to be also a parallel with the vegan thing, is that vegan is a concept based on pure compassion to protect the animals, but there's no real alternative. What's the purpose of animals? And they become not necessary. So it seems like it's just someone's idea. It's not complete. It's similar to this idea of just letting everything grow naturally. I think we eat one of our neighbours, it doesn't grow as long. The other neighbours is like perfect. You could measure a piece of grass and probably exactly the same height. And he lets this, so one of them allows so much to grow, and I enjoy his house and all the rest of it. But sometime later on, you can be paid the price because it will start to deteriorate his house. His intention is to try to do something good for nature, but I appreciate that point you made with the Dharma and our allowance for living in this planet.
Yes, and that really comes from understanding the purpose of this planet. If we understand this planet is here so it can grow, we can transform our consciousness and be transferred to an eternal planet. And that, when that is understood, then you can see how to manage the planet with that proper vision. But when you think the goal of this is to enjoy, then you end up with this imbalanced vision that you destroy everything to enjoy, and then somebody wants to protect everything to enjoy. So they're all trying to enjoy different aspects of their life missions. But at the end of the day, neither of the poles understanding that the bigger purpose is transformation of consciousness, and that happens when there's a balance of management. Like a king will do that. So that's what the projectors are doing. So they're making sure that there is enough opportunity for grains, for milk, for yagas, and that will make life very prosperous. Is that okay? Yes.
Today, when we see that the vast forest has already taken place, and the wild nature is not there anymore, there's a great emphasis amongst society to try and replant this and to try and regrow the wild environment. I'm wondering, is this the right way forward? Do we want to do that, or is there maybe a better way that would be more in line with how humans want to benefit from?
Very good question. It's an intelligent question. Should we recreate natural spaces? Should we recreate nature? And the answer, of course, is yes, in its proper spaces. If you have a look, and this we'll explore in the seminar, what we did is we went from this placenta stage, and all this forest became very opulent and natural. So man can destroy the complex to try to make it simple, meaning just one species, weed or oils. And then we keep working on that direction when nature is working in the opposite direction, from the simple to the complex. So if we understand how to grow in systems which are complex, that's the best. Because then you can have forest and nature, and places just keep forest on its own. Those are the reserve parks they have in place. And you have places where you interact with the forest in a positive way, but not on a monocropic. And this we explain more how the thinking process of agriculture is based on a wrong method. It's going from the complex to the simple. You know, like you put these harvesters and combiners and tractors to simplify things. Everybody is ready on one day. I harvest 1,000 hectares in a day myself. I just have like one machine which I go and cut it, one machine which threshes, one machine which makes the bales and fill it up. So after you finish, you have almost 1,000 homogeneous space. But I have completely ignored who is under the ground, the microorganisms. I have completely ignored that now because the soil is clear. The wind will blow in Midwest America's huge disasters, ecological disasters, with these tsunamis of sandstorms. I mean, just because you kept the whole earth open, which is not natural. You know, it's like creating a scar in your skin and leaving it open. So nature immediately tries to heal it by putting weeds on it, trying to recover its skin. You know, because so then the agriculture needs to go one step beyond saying, look, this is the basis of humanity, of civilization, growing in a way that everybody benefits from it. So the projetas are emphatically doing that. They're just saying, look, we have in order to marry, and then something very nice is going to come out. So after the trees are burned, Prabhupada explains that the trees, actually, the deity which represents the trees, comes forward and says, I surrender, please, we'll give you our daughter, which was already desired the second Lord, but they married this qualified personality to give birth to Daksha, which is the topic of the Bhagavatam now. So all of this is because the Prachetas are very thoughtful about progeny, very thoughtful about their duties as parenting. And Daksha is also similarly thinking about that. And you'll be exposed to some situations where sages preach to their children. So there's going to be some interaction there. So the Bhagavatam is really showing that here in this part is showing the foundation to a spiritual community. How to deal with life, how to deal with economy, how to deal with so that you can transcend to the higher topics. Is that okay? So we'll end here. We've gone past 2 minutes. But thank you so much for the opportunity to share some humble realizations. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Gaurakanandi.
His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu ki.
Just to finish in a sweet note, can we do 1 minute little kirtan?
Yeah.
Would you like to do? Yeah, just. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya,
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada.
He said if we do the mantra after, we can apply the knowledge.